Hello, fellow listeners. This is your host, Caleb Miller, and you are listening to InquireCast. This is a podcast designed to inquire into the lives and minds of those individuals who make this world a little more interesting. So please join with me in my lifelong pursuit of always asking questions, inquiring into the interesting people that I meet day to day, and trying to learn more about the ideas and belief systems that these people hold. Thank you for listening. Hello, everyone. Today, I sit down with Trent Halliday. Trent is a former chief of police and the resource officer for the Gunnison High School. In 2016, Trent was diagnosed with stage 4 melanoma cancer, and this interview is where I sat down with him and I talked to him about what it was like and what it has been like being diagnosed with cancer, and along with what the future holds for him. I hope that all of my listeners find just as much wisdom in this conversation as I did. Trent was a really inspiring guy, and I really enjoyed sitting down and having the opportunity to talk with him. So thank you. Okay, we're live. Mr. Trent Halliday, how are you?
Good.
So I would like to get into, did you grow up here?
I did not.
Where
No.
are you from?
Originally, I'm from Blanding, Utah.
And is that
Southeast corner by, about an hour south of Moab.
nice? And so you moved down here in like 2008?
I moved here in 2010.
2010. And then you assumed the role of the resource officer. Was that the first position you had down here?
That's the first job I had in Gunnison, yeah.
And then eventually you became sheriff?
The chief of
The
police.
chief. So is there a difference between that and the sheriff?
There is. So the sheriff is over the county, and the chief of police is over the city, the municipal department.
Okay. So so you were more like with dealing with administrative stuff, or were you actually out? Did you have your own police truck? Were you out? Could you pull people over and stuff as well?
Yeah. So where our department is so small, I did the administrative stuff, but most of my time was done patrolling and responding to calls.
So did you like doing that stuff more than the high school stuff?
I actually preferred the high school. That's the best job I've had.
I think Carl enjoys that a lot. Well, I think it'd be a fun, especially in a small town like this. You don't have too many hooligans.
No, it's awesome. You get to interact with the kids before they really determine whether they're gonna do bad things or not, and so there's a lot of intervention that can be done there. So I like that.
So this is I think this was the one of our few attempts to try and get you on here. It was Monday. 2 o'clock rolled around. I'm like, I better call him because you said you were sick the first time. I'm like, I hope he's still not sick. So I called and your wife answered, and she. It's a good thing though. It was a blessing in disguise because I learned something about you I didn't know that you did. You teach troubled. I don't know if it's troubled youth or how you'd phrase it.
So it's not troubled youth.
Not troubled. Okay.
I work for an organization, and we go into high schools and teach the resource classes.
Okay.
So it's anybody that's in resource, and we teach them job techniques like life skills and how to write a resume, and there's a whole curriculum that we teach, and we do that in the resource classes.
And the resource classes, are those those fall along the lines of just
anybody
like
with
skill
a
building?
disability?
Oh, okay. Do they offer a lot of those at the high school, or do you? I never.
At the Gunnison High School, we have 8 classes, so 4 each day, 4A day and 4B day. And it's a lot of different kids. So there's some with learning disabilities, and it's a whole range of
things that they
disabilities that people could have. Yeah.
Is that something that they come into? So this is primarily high school?
Yeah, the organization can teach anybody over 14. And so there are a couple kids in the middle school that could, but not enough that it would fill a class. But anybody that's in those classes have have either met with the counselors and come into high school and needed those classes, or got put in those classes after they've been in high school.
So that was interesting, and we can touch back on that at the end of this, because I think that would tie in a little better. But the reason why you're here, not the only reason. You're an interesting guy, regardless. But I think I was 20 years old, so I had been out of high school for 2 years. And my freshman year, you were my resource officer.
Yeah.
And we won't talk about the time I got in trouble. And but you had moved on to the what's it called? The
Chief of
police. And I remember I was sent on Facebook, and they had announced that you had been diagnosed with cancer. And I was like, no way, that guy. How old were you when you were diagnosed?
I would have been 39.
Yeah, that's so young. I was like,
Yeah.
And so and I think I was living with my sister at the time. And I mean, at some point, this is kind of a common thing with small towns, is everybody knows everyone.
Yeah.
And so at some point you had either, touched my life or my sister's life or her fiance's life. And so I think the whole community was kind of watching in on you. And then old Dan, as we talked about before the podcast, the owner of the Lazy D Pond.
Yeah.
I don't know who all put it together, but I know that he kind of hosted the was a raffle or the auction.
It was a benefit dinner and auction, and there was so many people involved in it. He and Mike Warner got it rolling, but then they had probably 50 people on their committee working to get that thing going.
That was a tremendous success. I think
Yeah.
I remember I showed up, and I've been to really big company Christmas parties, and the Mistletoe Mall and stuff will fill up those high schools and those elementary schools, but that was an amazing sight. So first off, do you mind asking what type of cancer was it that you were diagnosed with?
I was diagnosed with metastatic melanoma stage 4. So melanoma is a skin cancer, and all the metastatic and the stage 4, all that means is that it has gone from what it originally was into other organs and other parts of your body. And so stage 4 is one of the most extensive, that it had basically spread to every part of my body.
And and you didn't find out that you had it until it was in stage 4?
Yeah.
So when you found out, what was it like? Like what were your first thoughts when you were told the news?
When I was first told, and I was in denial a little bit. I didn't really grasp what they were telling me. It was kind of awkward. They had called me on the phone. It was late on a Friday when they got the results, and at first they didn't know exactly what it was. They knew I had a whole bunch of nodules in my body. They had done a CAT scan, and they saw these things that they knew were something, but they didn't know exactly what it was. And so kind of the unknown, I was still in a little bit of denial of, no, this isn't cancer. And then that was on November 4th. And then on November 18th, they did a biopsy, and they diagnosed that it for sure was the metastatic melanoma.
So after they found out that it was that, what was your mental state kind of going in through the rest of November and December? Obviously you're probably shocked, but what were your feelings surrounding those few months?
Yeah, I was really shocked. I'm a member of the LDS Church, and so on the 4th, when they first told me, I received a priesthood blessing. And after that blessing, I really felt like everything's going to be fine. I didn't have any idea what fine would look like, but I just felt at ease with what was going on, and that we would be okay. Towards the end of November, it would have been, I can't remember, it was the 28th or 29th of November, I met with an oncologist at Huntsman for the first time. I had met with some other doctors, but they all referred me to this doctor at Huntsman, and I met with him, and in our conversation, he told me I only had a 5% chance of survival, which was kind of overwhelming. I mean, you think about that, that's not real great odds. And he was trying to tell me, trying to give me like, well, you're going to live. I mean, you'll have an expected life of, and I wouldn't ever let him give me a time. I always call it a death date. I didn't want a death date of, you've got 2 months to live. And I feel like sometimes that makes people just kind of lay down and not fight anymore. Mm-hmm. So I wouldn't let him give me that. And he and I argued a little bit back and forth. And I told him if he wasn't on board with me beating this cancer, then I would find another doctor. I'd walk out, and there's plenty of doctors. I'll go to someone else. And we ended up kind of talking through it, and he said, well, what if I can give you 20 years? And I said, all right, give me 20 years. And I told him within that 20 years, I think one of those geniuses up there is going to cure it or have some amazing thing that they can do for it. So I was okay with 20 years. I'm not going to give up at 20 years, but I did let him finally tell me 20 years.
So you had the mindset that you were going to win.
Yes.
Yes, and I mean clearly. Yeah. Are you cancer free right now?
No.
Not yet.
No, I at one point was down to I only had one tumor in my brain, and when I was first diagnosed, I had hundreds of tumors all through my body, all over in my lymph system. So all through, like, just under the skin, you could see them. They were everywhere. And then, well, it would have been mid-2017, I was down to just one that was still in my brain. It had burst in December, but it was the residual parts of that tumor were still there. And then over the last couple of years, I've got more tumors coming back. And right now I've got, I think, 5 or 6 that are in my brain and head area.
So, kind of an existential question. Even with the mindset that you're going to beat this, but at some point did you sit down and think, regardless of your belief on an afterlife or where you go from this, are there things that you thought, I should have done more of these?
Yeah, I mean, it all went back to my family. I always feel like, man, I should spend more time with my family, and I really focus on that now. We always were really good, pretty family-centered. Never really did anything without my family, and I just felt like that was important to spend as much time with my family as I could.
And so that's something you have implemented more into your life, is spending a lot of time with your family.
Yeah.
That's kind of a curious thought to me. Was I always wonder that people placed in situations like that where it's like their whole life kind of falls before them, and they're like, man, I should have done this. I should have ate better. I should have called my mom more. Than if they ever get out of it, if they really do implement it. And so that's kind of always been curious with me. But and coming from Utah, even small town Gunnison, the family value is very strong here. And so that's good that you had that, and you've always had that, and you continue to strengthen that. Now the treatment so I heard a rumor from, I can't remember who it was, but I think you were on an experimental treatment. Is that what it was?
It was a newer treatment. It's called immunotherapy. It's a type of chemotherapy, but it works in different ways than the chemotherapy does. And it had only been out about 2 years when I got diagnosed.
And that's solely the only thing they've been hitting you with?
Yeah.
Or is there, and so you've went from, you said hundreds of tumors down to just a handful. Wow, that's pretty impressive. It seems like it's working.
Yeah, it really has. It's kind of changing. The biggest problem with it is it's not able to be used on all types of cancers. My cancer happened to be one that it could be used on and works really well. But even with that immunotherapy, not everyone does as well as I have done on it. It does. I mean, so my new oncologist said he's only seen 2 patients in his whole practice, even with the immunotherapy, that have responded like I did. So he was working, I think it was in Minnesota, and that's all he did was melanoma trials and immunotherapy, and he's only seen 2 of us that react like this. So it was a miracle that I was able to respond to that medicine so well.
So you've taken up, you teach, and your wife informed me that you mow lawns.
Yeah.
Like the way she said it, she's like, he's out mowing a lawn, and I don't want to go make him stop. Then she proceeded to tell me that you do about 10 lawns. And I'm like, this guy's got 10 times the ambition that I've got in a whole week. But
I do several lawns in our neighborhood just for people that, I mean, they could do it themselves, but I like doing it. I enjoy doing it, so I just go do it for them.
And so along the lines of that, are there things that you could do before being diagnosed and going through the treatments that you can no longer do now and that you wish you could still do? What are some of those things that
I'm not allowed to drive right now.
Oh.
And that's hard. I mean, so everything that I do, I have to have somebody take me. Even if I want to go down to the grocery store and get some stuff for dinner, I have to have somebody drive me. My eyes have been really affected by the cancer and the treatments that I've been given, and so I've been having to get some steroid shots in my eyes about every 3 months to get the swelling to go down. When that swelling's up, I can't see really anything at all, and then they do the injections and the swelling goes away, and then I'm able to see, but it's still probably not very safe to drive, and so they've just asked me not to drive.
Is that the primary reason why they restrict your driving, is just for the eyes?
That and the chance that I could have a seizure because of the tumors in my brain, and they don't really want people driving that have seizures, because then you could wreck and kill a lot of people yourself. Or, I mean, my first doctor I still have a legal valid driver's license, and it hasn't been taken away. My doctors have just asked me to not drive, and so I've done that.
It's funny how they ask some people not to drive and they allow others. I think I was in a psychology class, and I had a professor that said she went to church with an old lady who I think it's narcolepsy, where you just randomly fall asleep.
Yes.
And she was in the middle of church, and everyone, they're all singing and stuff. And there's this girl just passed out in the middle of the I don't know what the room, but where they all congregate. She's passed out. Well, they go through the rest of the morning, get up and leave, and she's still sleeping there. And she asked, my professor was like, should we wake her up? I'm like, oh no, she's fine. She does this all the time. She just randomly passes out. And she's like, at first I was kind of concerned about her. Then I got really concerned when I left the church, and everyone was leaving and her car was still out there. I'm like, they let her drive. I'm like, that's scary. Just someone falling asleep driving down the road.
Yeah.
But so it seems like it's kind of like you lose a little bit of your personal freedom. Your ability to go out and do whatever you'd like to do. Do you? You seem fairly mobile. Can you go for long walks? Can you, how's it impacted you physically other than your eyes?
So it's taken a lot of my strength. I'm not able to walk long distances. I have to use a cane now. My balance has really been affected by the tumors in my brain. They've been in, your eyes have a lot to do with your balance, and then other areas of your brain. And so my balance is really quite bad. And so I can't walk a long distance. Stairs are really hard on me. And so it's taken a lot of my physical ability also.
Physical ability aside, you've got the mental sharpness of a 20-year-old, it seems. To teaching what are they called? What type of classes are they that you teach?
Resource classes.
The resource classes. So something that I never really paid attention to while I was in high school, and I think part of the reason why was because the if I can remember correctly, the resource classes that we had when I was in high school was taught by it was Andy's brother. I can't remember his name.
Aaron
Aaron.
Peterson.
Yeah, I think he taught it. And I don't know if he still
did.
does. And they were just kind of out in, like way back in the one hall, and there was a classroom that no one really noticed. But I think that's something that's not really, at least from my perception, isn't talked about a lot or isn't really common. In fact, I almost guess that a lot of my friends don't know that there are classes designed for people like that. So are these things like ADHD
Yeah.
or
Anybody that has any type of disability can be in those classes. Most of them are for learning disabilities, ADHD, dyslexia, any type of thing like that. And some people just have a harder time learning. They have learning disabilities that way, that they just need special focus, and so anybody can kind of qualify for that class.
Is there something that I would think that maybe self-esteem would be an issue or something, but is there something that the students that you teach, they all struggle with, other than, they all have their varying degree of struggles, but
not that I know of. So like I said, we go in and we teach. We're only there for 8 or 9 weeks, so I don't really know the kids really that well, but I haven't seen like an overtone of this one thing that they all have in common. It's a wide variety of everybody that's in there has just different things, and so you teach to different levels,
and so I think you mentioned, as well as your wife mentioned, how to like write a resume was one of them.
Yeah.
What were the other things that you teach
so
them?
we talk a lot about after. It's called pre-employment training, and so basically anything we talk about: job interview skills, resumes, cover letters. We also talk about we have a lot of lessons, or not a lot of lessons, but lessons on like picking a job and what it may take to get that job, different things like that. We talk about money management. We talk about apartment living on their own, and so it's just a lot of basically skills and stuff they'll need after they move out of mom and dad's house.
And so it seems like it's kind of factored towards or focused on success later down the road. Do they teach any like college skills, anything that readies them for college, or is it solely for a career?
It's mostly career-based. There is a little bit on like scholarship, but there's other programs like vocational rehab and some of those that focus more on college and stuff. Ours is more geared towards jobs and employment.
On the phone, I feel like your wife just had a lot of like really interesting, quick second things. I was like, wait a minute, I didn't know that about him. So I keep going back. But she said that when you were younger, you struggled with something that kind of led you to, this is part of the reason why you teach this. I didn't know what she was referencing. I didn't know if you had some form.
So I have some physical disabilities that I've had my whole life. Well, not my whole life. When I was in high school, I was thrown out of the back of a pickup onto a barbed wire fence and almost cut my arm off. You can see the scar there. Of course, they're not going to be able to see it on the podcast. And then I was that happened when I was 15 years old. I was a sophomore in high school. And then when I was a senior in high school, I was on a motorcycle and I got ran over. I got T-boned by a pickup truck. And again, they're not going to be able to see it, but I've got a massive scar and injury to my leg. And so I was involved with voc rehab to be able to get myself into a job that I would be able to do with these physical disabilities.
Now, I think last time I spoke to you, we were at your son's track meet in Manti probably a good year and a half, 2 years ago, and you told me you were pursuing, was it an accounting degree?
Mm-hmm.
Are you still pursuing that?
I still am, yeah.
So that's just a bunch of numbers, right?
Yeah.
Oh,
Yep.
See, that blows my mind. It's like the mental acuity of a 20-year-old, because I'm 24 and I was like, numbers are no for me.
Yeah, so it goes over. I mean, I'm about to graduate. I've got 2 classes left to get my bachelor's degree in accounting. And it focuses on everything from taxes to corporate, how a corporation is set up with stockholders and debt and equity and all of that. So it's really interesting to me, but yeah, it's a lot of numbers. It requires a lot of math.
So you've went from, being a police officer and, as well as the resource officer and the chief of police,
Mm-hmm.
like this, right? And then, getting just blindsided by, what was the exact name of the cancer again? The
Metastatic melanoma.
That's a mouthful. So you got blindsided, and then,
You could just say melanoma.
Melanoma.
That's
I like
what
that.
Yeah.
And through this persistence, you've began pursuing a bachelor's degree. Did you start pursuing that after?
I started it before. I graduated from Snow College in 2016, April of 16, and I was diagnosed in November of 16. So I had started before.
That reminds me of what Justin Miller said. I don't know if you got the chance to listen to what he and I talked about, but he does that, what was it, March of Our Lives or whatever it is. I can't remember the exact name of it. I apologize, Justin, if you're listening to this. But he said that there was this lady that went out, and I think she was battling cancer as well, and went out and finished I think she did the 16-mile walk or the ruck or the 26-mile one, I think is what it is. And he said that she went through and she finished it, and might have even had crutches at one point, I think he said. And there was another girl that, seemed physically well able, and, he didn't notice anything about her physical health, but that she complained that the half was 2 miles longer than what it should have been. And he talked a lot about how people give themselves excuses not to do something. And I mean, I see that within my own life often. The other day I woke up, went to work, and my girlfriend was feeling a little sick, and I'm like, God, can I use this as an excuse not to go to work today? But that's so inspiring. I think a lot of people, given the circumstance, even a much more mild circumstances, they finish their associates and then they're like, well, I got this next big mountain to climb. Something as simple as a broken arm might have taken a lot of people out, and it's interesting and inspiring to see that you didn't let stage 4 cancer stop you from pursuing that.
No, it was a goal that I had made, and so I just want to pursue it and make sure that like I said, I'm 2 classes away, and so I'll be able to graduate within the next month or 2 and be able to accomplish that goal that I've set out for myself. So
from this, there's 2 things I want to address, and hopefully I can remember the second one. But the first one is there a kind of an overreaching moral that you've learned from this experience? Is there something that, if you were to write a book, what would it be about?
Well, I've learned kind of 2 things. I've joked very often, and even before I had cancer, because of I had been life flighted out twice when I was in high school, and so I joke all the time that I'm immortal, that I can't be killed, and my mom and my daughters and my wife all kind of get mad at me when I say that. But I think the biggest thing that if I were to write a book, I would still write that I'm going to be immortal, but it really does bring into perspective how fragile our lives are, and more so for me, seeing the people around me and how it affects their lives. we always look at the person that's going through something, and we can tell how it affects them. And I mean, I can't work, I can't drive, that kind of thing. Or can't do my job that I used to. I can't be a police officer because I can't run, and I mean, there's lots of physical things that I can't do to do that job, but you don't see the impact that it has on, like, my wife, who is now my full-time caretaker, and she drives me everywhere. She has to drive me to all of my doctor's appointments. She has to give me my medicines when I need. I mean, it just changes the lives of everyone around you. My kids have all struggled with. They've done incredible with it, but just the fact that, man, what if Dad passes away, and those types of things. And so just that ripple effect of how it affects everyone around you has been an eye opener, and just knowing that at any time life can change, and you have no idea. I had goals. Like I said, I had started my education stuff before I got cancer, and I had these goals. I had no reason to believe that I wouldn't just be able to do it, and then some of my goals got changed because of this diagnosis, and a lot of the treatments that I've had. I mean, you've talked about mental sharpness, but I've lost a lot of that because of all of they had to do full brain radiation on me, and so my short-term memory is not very good anymore. I still remember all of the things from my past, and it didn't really affect that, but I have a hard time with short-term stuff.
So you said the one thing that you wish you had done more of, and now you do incorporate into your life more, is spending time with your family.
Yeah.
Are there other things that you thought that you had taken for granted? I think that, a common cliche one would be like, just going outside and smelling the roses. Are there other things that you found that you try and live a little more fuller in those regards, other than spending more time with your family?
I mean, there's things that I definitely took for granted. And I mean, going back to even the ability to drive, I don't know if people really understand how convenient that is when you take that away. And we live in a nation where every home owns at least 2 cars. I've also lived in a country where nobody owned a car at all. And so we take that for granted quite a bit. And then my vision, where it's been so affected, I really took it for granted, and it's hard when you can't see. When my eyes are at their worst and I can't even see a computer screen, I can't read anything. All of those things I really took for granted. They're just things you've always had. You don't really put a ton of importance into them because they're there.
Yeah.
You've had them. And so but yeah, being outside and being able to go for a walk, I would love to go for a walk or go run again. My wife and I used to go run together. Can't do that anymore. And so there's a lot of those things that have kind of been taken away from me because of this.
So my girlfriend and father, when they passed away, I for me, that was like, life is very fragile. Like, you don't realize how fragile a human being is. And then you look at it biologically. Biologically, it's like all of our important stuff's right here in front of us. Like, we get stabbed in the stomach. Like, we're not really protected. But for me, when I realized how fragile life was, it was like I became so safe. I kind of made everything like bubble wrapped my entire life for a while, and I still have those kinds of moments where I like when I'm cooking meat, for example, I have to measure the temperature of my meat on everything, because I'm like, what if I get sick? What if I get really sick from this raw meat? What if I die? And things like substances. I used to be really bad with substances, and now I can't do any because I get so anxious. And I said this to, I can't remember who I said it to, but it's so hard to have an addictive personality and have these addictive tendencies, but also be a hypochondriac because you can't do anything. And for a while, this fear of fragility of life, that it can just be taken from you so quickly and so suddenly, it really limited me as to what I would do and what I could do. And I kind of shriveled up. And then I think there was a point in which I think you reached almost instantaneously when you said, I'm going to beat this. But there's this point, I think, when you realize how fragile life is. And this is something I think everyone should realize, how fragile life is, that you're like, I might go today, I might not wake up tomorrow. What am I going to do in that time? And am I going to try and do the very best that I can? And that's something that I've tried to apply to my own life. And when I see people who are just kind of existing, and they don't really, you can tell when someone doesn't think further than tonight, what they're going to do. Yeah. And so I think it's as tragic as it is, as what you've had to go through to be on the cusp of life and death. But it's inspiring to hear that you've had that. I mean, you've looked down that deep fall, or honestly, it's probably not a deep fall. It's probably, I hope it's a transition to heaven.
Yeah.
That would be nice. But you've looked at that and you thought, no, I can do more, and I can go harder. So that's inspiring, and I think a lot of people could take something away from that. So do you have any plans other than, I mean, you said you're pursuing your bachelor's degree. You said you were diagnosed in 2016.
Mm-hmm.
So you have at bare minimum, so that was 3 years ago. You have bare minimum 17 years left. Do you have any plans for those 17 years?
Yeah. So, and as you were talking, I kept thinking about, a lot of people have like a bucket list. I mean, we hear that all the time. My bucket list, I want to do this before I die. I don't really have a lot of those things, because I feel like anything that comes up that would be on my bucket list, I just do. I don't wait around. There's things, and I mean, I ask people, what would you do if, there's a song about it. What would you do if you found out you were dying? There's just nothing like that I feel like I need to do. In the next 17 years, I plan on just living as normal a life as I can. My children are getting older, and so they're kind of moving out, and I never think about, well, God, I'm going to pass away. I live life. I've had a lot of people question, why are you going to school if you're not even going to be able to get through school? Probably you may pass away before you're able to graduate. Because my ultimate plan is to get my master's degree in accounting and try to become a CPA, which is still at least another 3 or 4 years of schooling and all the stuff you have to do to test to become the CPA and all that stuff. And so a lot of people have questioned, is this really wise? I mean, why would you do that? And really the reason I would do it is because I don't believe I'm at any more risk than anyone else is to die. Yeah, I've got some stuff going on, but I think all of us will have a time when we pass away, and that'll come when it comes. And I don't live in fear of that. I don't live questioning that. I don't live a bucket list life, because I just don't, like I said before, I don't really, I guess I don't really 100% believe I'm immortal, but I don't believe I'm not either. I believe that I'll go forever. I don't see an end, and so I don't live towards an end.
All of that just, resonates with me, because it's like living in the present. It's just, you wake up and you're like, I want to do this, I'm going to do it. Or if you ever woke up and wanted to do it and you just did it. And I think too many people have the end in sight. Like, you have to get all this done. You have to get all this done. You have to get all this done. Then when, you never really know when the end's going to come. And to live in the present, like that's something that's very difficult. That's something that I find myself not doing enough when I'm like, I won't be achieved until I've got, 10 years of school under my belt. And I look back and I'm like, man, I wasted like a whole year of just looking into the future when I should have been, smelling the roses.
Yeah, and that was a big part of why I wouldn't let the doctor give me a death date. I wouldn't let him. Even the 20 years, I don't believe that that's a set time. I fully believe that I'll live well past that. But I just, like you said, I just try to live in the present. I don't want to focus on. And that's why I didn't want him to tell me that I had 6 months, because I do believe when we get that kind of, especially from an educated doctor, they tell you have 6 months to live. A lot of times we go 6 months and then we give up because I'm supposed to be dead now. And so I feel like we just need to live every day, and like we have. I mean, it's kind of a rough thing because you don't want to live like you have a tomorrow, because we tend to put things off. Well, I can do that tomorrow. And so you want to live today I don't have a bucket list because I do the things I want to do. If something comes up that I want to do, I do it.
When you're saying that after 6 months, if someone's only given 6 months and maybe after the 6 months they're just going to give up, there was a study I watched about there was these two kids, a boy and a girl. I think they were like 10 and 11, and they had these chronic, like the one had a chronic skin condition and the other one I think had really bad ADHD. And they're like, well, how powerful is just the mind? Let's just give these two kids placebos and nothing but. Mm-hmm. And they brought these kids in and they had a fake MRI. They had a real MRI machine that it wasn't turned on. And they put these kids through the MRI machine, and they had fake noises going, like speakers and stuff. So these kids thought it was like, okay, we're going to give you these bracelets, and now that you've went through this special test, through the special machine, your symptoms are going to go away. You're going to have, your skin's going to clear up, and you're going to, your ADHD is going to just reduce dramatically. But you have to keep telling yourself and believing that this little special armband on your arm is going to help. And they didn't give them a single medication or anything. And like 4 months later, they checked in, and the one kid had completely gotten off of all of his ADHD medicine and was sleeping normally, and the other girl hadn't had a single breakout on her skin for like 4 months. And like I say that to tie it in with, if you have that mindset, and if you really do believe that you're going to win this, and you're going to you are going to live for 20 plus years. I mean, I'm going to come back and set up shop here, and you're still going to be wandering around. You're going to be driving. That's what's going to happen. 20 years from now, you're going to be driving.
I hope so.
And in a brand new Tesla. You won't have to drive. It'll drive for you. And but if you have this mindset that, I'm going to fail, I'm going to die within 6 months. If you set up this preconceived notion that something's going to happen, whether it be negative or positive, either way, you're going to reap the rewards of that. So what I'm seeing is a man who had this positive mindset, who believed he was going to get something, believed he's going to achieve something, and hasn't stopped yet. Yeah. And it's worked out for you. It's amazing. Yeah. So is there anything else that you feel that my listeners might find intriguing?
Yeah, I just want to tell you one more story.
I'd love to hear it.
That will kind of convey this mind over matter. I've always believed in mind over matter. I mean, when I go camping, I hate going to the bathroom in the woods. And I always tell my family, I just had a talk with my stomach. I told it we're shutting down. And when we get back from camping, then we can go to the bathroom again. And I've always had that mind over matter mindset. And I was in the hospital after some of my treatments. I got put in the hospital because my liver was in failure. And two doctors came in. They were liver specialists, and they came in and they talked to me about my liver levels, the enzyme levels that your liver produces, and mine were mine were way out of whack. They were really, really high. And I kind of questioned them, when do I get out of the hospital? And they said, when your levels start to trend downward, then we'll release you from the hospital. You can go home. We'll have you on some medicines. And I told the doctor, okay, it'll be tomorrow. And he said, no, it takes some time to start trending down. And I said, no, I'm going to come back tomorrow. My liver levels are going to be down. You're going to release me tomorrow. And they both, no, you're not. And I said, yeah, I'm going to have a talk with my liver as soon as you leave. And my levels are going to be down tomorrow. The next day, the doctor came in and he was just laughing. He walked in the room and he said, I don't know what happened. We never see this happen, but your liver levels are down and we're going to release you today. I said, I told you yesterday that you were going to release me today, that my liver levels were going to be trending down just like you've asked me to do. And I really believe that our mind has so much power over our body. We have the ability to, like that story you were talking about, the boy and the girl. If you believe in something, your mind can make it happen. And I believe that I'm going to continue to live. I believe I'm going to be able to continue to be productive in life and not be a cancer victim. I have cancer, but I'm not a cancer victim. I just have cancer. It's not that big a deal. And that's my mindset. And I truly, truly believe in mind over matter.
I think that you said it best with the, if you believe it, it'll happen. I think that the clear and obvious thing is if you believe in yourself, I mean, you're the living example of that. So I really appreciate you coming on here, Trent. Yeah. It was an honor to have you. So thank you.
Yeah, thanks for having me. This has been great.